As always, it's been a minute since I've been on here, but I was just reading my horoscope. I subscribe to Chani Nicholas's newsletter and get my horoscope from that. It's not your sort of standard horoscope that you read in a newspaper or something, or for folks who still read newspapers. Um, it's different. Just check out Shani's website, and I think you'll understand more when you actually see it than if I try to explain it in any reasonable way. So that's ChaniNicholas.com. I'll just put it down in the notes too if I remember. But just reading my horoscope, and it's for the new moon in December. Don't ask, on Thursday, I mean. Don't ask me what that stuff means. I don't know. That stuff is above my head. But oftentimes when I read my horoscope that Chani Nicholas sends, I get hit by like a phrase or something in it that just completely throws me off because it's just so, it hits me somewhere where I'm not ready to sort of deal with. And this time was definitely no exception. Um, so there's this line, and this is why I'm doing this recording. I'm not here to dull my shine because others can't deal with their reflection. Um, and that hit really hard because I know that's been sort of my reality of the last few years is that I've been constantly sort of hiding um, and putting myself away um, because other people can't deal with me. Um, Again, I'm gonna keep that shit vague for the time being and not be specific because it's not about them. It's about what I'm doing, um, and I don't again like as with every one of these horses, I don't know if I'm ready to deal with the fact that I do dull my shine. I do put myself away so that other people don't have to deal with it. Or that I don't have to deal with the repercussions of other people not being able to deal with it. Um, it's been really hurtful and damaging and harmful. It's been at the core of so much of my mental health stuff in the last few years, um, and it's my reality. I haven't sort of figured out how to balance my fear of what happens when other people can't deal with me or my shine or whatever, however you want to put it, or their reflection in it, um, as well as my need to sort of like I need to get out there. The work that I want to do is I want to be out there to do this work. I not in terms of sort of being some sort of like famous person that folks sort of recognize, but someone that has credibility in reaching out to people and talking to them about transness and masculinity and race and all these other things that are really important and core to me in and out of higher ed and across it, and I just haven't been able to do it. Um, the But the other piece too, I think that's a little underlying it is how cultured some of this is for me, how socialized some of this is for me. Um, it made me think of that because I'm currently going through my first year review at Oakland University where I'm a professor, and the the whole concept of sort of submitting all of these accomplishments and requesting letters from students about your teaching, requesting faculty to come and write letters of support for you in terms of your teaching, um, in getting like letters for every single thing that you sort of volunteer for. That's again like that praise you, right? Like these are supposed to be sort of you're making a case that you're doing a great job, and you deserve to like stick around. Um, you're supposed to sort of like brag about yourself because you write a personal statement and sort of explain all the things you're doing and why it's important and all of that stuff. And it's um, the braggadocious stuff is not it doesn't come naturally to me, and it oftentimes feels really off-putting to be honest. I don't like doing it. And a lot of that comes from the way that I've been raised. Um, for me and my family, sort of like talking yourself up is not a virtue. Bragging and being sort of overly prideful and arrogant about your accomplishments is obnoxious. It's on the verge of unacceptable. Um, your actions and how other people feel are meant to talk for themselves, and you don't need to sort of describe those things. It shouldn't be about that, and yet I'm in the academy, and that's what the academy wants. Is you gotta brag about yourself. You gotta put yourself out there. I'm in a cohort right now at the university, meant for sort of mostly junior faculty. It's called the PI Academy. PI stands for Primary Investigator, and it's a pretty cool program. It gives us a lot of tools to sort of be better researchers and scholars in lots of different ways. But even through that sort of sentiment of selling yourself, whether it's in grant applications or when you're networking and sort of connecting with other folks, it's still always there. So it's a very, very uncomfortable place for me to be. It takes a lot of mental energy and time for me to like work myself up into it, write up these elevator pitches, or whatever the case might be, to sort of brag about myself and sell myself to someone else, to not only make what I'm doing, my work, significant, but the fact that I'm doing it, to sell that as significant. Why should someone invest in me specifically? And that's, I don't care to sell that. And I want my work to shine. I want the significance of that to be at the center of it, and for it not to matter that it's coming from me. At some level, I recognize that that's a little hypocritical, because positionality is important, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about not recognizing sources of knowledge and prioritizing sources of knowledge that are experiential, right? Like that, if we're talking about trans research, for example, that we elevate trans research done by trans people versus trans research done by cis folks. But so that stuff, yes, that stuff matters. But again, it's off-putting. So this idea that I need to sort of like get back into figuring out what my shine is, first of all, let alone put it out there and brag about it. It's something that I got to work on. I know that what the horoscope is talking about and what the academy means with shine are definitely completely two different worlds, two different interpretations of what that means and what that looks like, and why that's important. I think about sort of this horoscope version to be much more about allowing yourself to be coming into your full humanity of who you are, and not masking parts of you because other people can't deal with what it means for them, and who they are, and what they do, and so on and so forth, versus the academy's version of sort of like this highlighting of the individual versus the collective or the community. But again, it's why it hit so hard, because it's something that's an issue for me in my personal life as well as in my professional life. And I haven't sort of like managed to talk out how to do it. I've had these conversations with lots of different folks. I can't get rid of the fear. I can't get rid of the fear of reactions. It's a fear that's still, even after these last few years, a little foreign to me. I never had this before. It's one of the things that my mom always brings up about sort of like how I was just not afraid about like picking up and just going to the States and to study, and that I was happy to do it by myself, and just kind of figured things out along the way, and you know, and I was doing this as a first gen student, so not only not having sort of the U.S. contextual knowledge of where I was going in, what I was going into, but also not necessarily the navigational knowledge of how colleges and universities work and what they look like. Never, I didn't have that fear. That stuff excited me to go into new terrain, and see what it was going to do to me, and who I was going to become through it, and what I could bring to it. And there's definitely lots of places in my world that I still do that, and that stuff still excites me when I start research projects, and jump into a classroom discussion that's significant to me for some reason. It's still very, very present, and I love diving into those things, or volunteering for stuff on campus that's important or whatever. But then when it comes to sort of like sharing out that stuff, sharing out the results of the research, and I want to do it for the purpose of sharing the actual information and what other folks have given and gifted me. But then it becomes this whole like self-congratulatory thing at the same time, which I don't like. And then that also sets me up for attack, particularly in this moment that we live in, this what keeps getting described as precarious times. The reality is, as a leftist, as a trans person of color, as an immigrant, as all these things that are disfavored in the moment. And historically, let's not kid ourselves about how new this is. But I think the newness is sort of like how much access people can have to me, and how quickly people can have access to me, online and otherwise. So that adds to that fear. But we're here to sort of like model different ways of being for our students, right, who are experiencing those types of things too. And I'm failing at it for the most part. I'm not doing a particularly great job. Some days better than others, and if you can hear that, that's Bella, my cat, who's like really upset that I'm doing this instead of feeding her. But she's always hungry. It's not actually her dinner time. So yeah, I'll just, I guess, leave it at that, and come back to this conversation of how do I shine without centering myself. If you have thoughts about that, I'd love to hear them. Thanks for listening.